Welcome to the Social Impact Level Up podcast. This is where we blur the lines between business, nonprofit, and impact. I'm your host, Wendy V, and in season 3, we're redefining success for social entrepreneurs looking to grow their revenue. If you have reality-changing ideas, this is the place for you. Let's jump right into today's episode. Hi, welcome back to another episode. This is almost the end of our season 4, and I'm really excited to carry out this conversation today. We have 2 more episodes left, so this is our last guest episode. And today we're talking about all of the career transitions that people are going through. How do we manage them? How do we go through them gracefully? A lot of you know, if you listen to the podcast, that I have been through a career transition myself, and we always need some support in that and where we're going to go next. So my guest today is Scott Raether, and he is going to help us with that question. So Scott, if you can tell me, who are you and how do you make an impact?
Hello, everybody. So yes, my name is Scott Raether. I'm in the St. Louis area, and my primary job at this moment is assisting military members with transitioning out of the service and finding new employment in the outside world, so to speak. I am a certified professional career coach, certified resume writer, and life coach as well. The reason that I love the life coach blend of it all is, as I'm working with individuals, many of them have other things going on in the background besides finding a new career. So having that ability to kind of blend and understand where they're at in life to help them decide where they want to go with their career makes for a great match through it. So I'm very happy to be here and look forward to talking to everybody about that next career transition that they might be going through.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point that, the military folks have had to do this career transition every time you exit the military. Other people, maybe like myself, would find yourself in this predicament if you lose your job. There's also a lot of people who are experiencing reductions in force right now or rifts. So how you get there to that crossroads is there's a lot of different ways to get there. But once you're there, it can be a really scary place for people because you're used to getting this paycheck every 2 weeks. Like, this is a normal thing for you. So how do you start managing that?
So complacency can be an issue for a lot of us. We get very comfortable with what we're doing. And then myself being a federal employee, I'm feeling the pressure now as well. And I realize, even though as I'm coaching people, I'm telling them, you can't wait, you got to start now. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, Scott, you've been waiting and you got to start now. So that's the key, is maybe not to necessarily be complacent and always start to think about what could be next. And I mean, it could be even a promotion in, the current organization you work for, or it could be a better opportunity at another company that you want to pursue. But if we put ourselves on cruise control, then we're going to create barriers to finding employment as we press forward.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I know I'm in my mid-40s, but a lot of my peers, we've been either in certain industries for a very long time now, or we kind of floated around between a couple of different industries and really generally provided the same kind of support. They came same kinds of positions, but in different places, I guess you could say. And I think when I talk to a lot of my federal employee friends, they have so much of a different experience. It's usually you get in and you sit there in that same place for a very long time. You might stay in the same agency or the same job for years and years and years. So the level of complacency is very high in that industry. Whereas you might see people in private sector and nonprofit that move around a little bit more frequently. And those sectors tend to also, you got to look at climate and all these other things. Sometimes in the government, climate can be horrible, but people are excited to just have a paycheck every 2 weeks and a pension.
Yes. Yep. And that's kind of that risk versus reward type thing that we often think about. I think individuals that might be, in the corporate world, they understand that they need to take a little bit more risk to advance in their career. Whereas maybe a federal employee, sort of like myself, I've been at the same organization for the last 15 years, trying to realize what potentially could be next. It does create stress. And it does also at the same time open your eyes as to, okay, now what do I need to do to be competitive, whether it's going into the corporate world, potentially looking at entrepreneurship or whatever could be next. So it's that balance between the uncertainty of things plus maybe the motivation of a fresh new start and doing something that you haven't done in maybe the last 15 years.
If you're looking for grant funding and don't know where to start, let me introduce you to the secret that even grant writers don't know. Idea to Impact, the grant writing course that makes it easy to learn everything from A to Z about grant writing in plain English with on-demand half-hour modules and go-at-your-own-pace workbooks. This course is unlike any other because it delivers insider tips from a grant reviewer and grant creator, me. I've awarded over $35 million in grants throughout my career, and I give you access to all of the resources and knowledge that you need to apply for millions of dollars on your own. No grant writer needed. Sign up today at wendyveloz.com/grants.
Yeah. I think when you're talking about the entrepreneurship road, there's a lot to learn, and going, especially from being a federal employee to that route. I told you I did a whole episode on that because a lot of people don't know the steps about how to really monetize your skill set. But looking for another job and moving around even within the same employer, those are other options that I didn't discuss. So I want to make sure we give people kind of like so if that's your choice, here's what your best moves are. Like, where do you strategically spend your time? Because I know people who will spend days wordsmithing a resume, or they'll go to networking events, but then when you ask them, what can we do to help you get the position that you want? They will have no solid answer for you. So I feel like people could be setting themselves up for success better with some pretty basic techniques like informational interviews, networking, other ways to find those jobs, and to not feel so either complacent or scared.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very good point. In my mind, a lot of mistakes I think people make is they see a job announcement, they might tweak their resume to match up to that position, and they apply for it, they sit back and they wait. They're not proactive in how they should be strategically trying to align themselves as the best person for the job. And as we're realizing with the advent of AI, people are tailoring their resume using AI. They're applying faster. And maybe in a week or so, they'll say, I applied for 100 jobs and I haven't heard anything back. And in Scott's mind, I'm like, you probably would have been better off if you only applied for 5 jobs in a week. But for those 5 jobs, you reached out to recruiters. You reach out to people that work at the organization for the position that you're interested in. And like you had mentioned, trying to do an informational type interview. And the goal is, how can I become a referral? How can I separate myself from the 100 people that have applied to me being over here by myself? And the best way to make that happen is trying to find a way to become a referral. And this is where LinkedIn becomes our best friend, so to speak, because we can use all these different filters to find somebody that maybe went to the same university as us, somebody that's in the same industry that we're pursuing, somebody maybe that was in the service and is also a veteran and now they're working at that company. So there's a lot of different ways we can find commonalities with people that are where you want to be. And then you have to find a way to connect the dots by being authentic and hoping that that individual will then want to support you in getting to where you need to go within that organization.
I think that's such a good point. I need to be prospecting my business clients in the same way. I like, Scott, you're so right. I think let's talk about LinkedIn, because people like me, when I was in the government, only use LinkedIn for the purpose of job seeking and sending out resumes, like you said, like, and maybe not in mass, there was an AI at that point, but
Yeah.
going through the options on LinkedIn and trying to see what aligns with my skills, what are they paying, what industry are they in? Do I like that part of the world? Because sometimes they're not in the same area as you. And that was the extent of my LinkedIn genre of work, right? Like there wasn't anything going on but beyond that. Now, as a content creator and a business owner, I've been live on LinkedIn. I have an 11,000 person newsletter. I have, not as many followers as Scott does, but I've got my own little following. And, it's a cool place to hang out. But when you're trying to generate business leads or when you're trying to generate a new position for yourself, I can imagine that you're positioning yourself on platform differently. So can you speak a little bit about like when on the LinkedIn platform and people are trying to accomplish these career transitions, what should they be doing if they're in those different camps? Because I would assume that, from your perspective, you could probably do both, but at the same time, you want people to connect with the people they're trying to get in touch with.
Yes. I think a primary mistake that a lot of people make is the mindset, I've got to find a job. I got to get a job. And I do understand that, right? We got bills to pay, we got mouths to feed and those types of things. But I think if we make, I got to find a job almost secondary to taking LinkedIn and using it to build relationships, to show the community that you have knowledge in the area that you're potentially moving into. And I'll use myself as an example as I'm thinking about, what's next for Scott. Let's say there's a position at a university to be a career counselor that aligns with me. My idea is if I've connected with other career counselors, if I am posting content that solidifies my knowledge as a career coach, if I am reaching out to recruiters or, again, a professional that's also a career coach at universities, and I'm bringing it all together by using LinkedIn, it's only going to benefit me later when it's really go time for us to really start actively applying for jobs. We've almost planted the seeds, so to speak, and then now we're watering and we're nurturing and we're giving it fertilizer to get that success for when it's really time to look for a job.
Yeah, that's a really good point because you want to be moving in the direction also of whatever choice you're making for the next step. So if you're choosing entrepreneurship, you want to be surrounding yourself in your network with other entrepreneurs. If you're looking for a job in a certain industry, you want to be looking for people in that industry. So it all sort of makes sense. But I think when you're there clicking on things, maybe people aren't clicking with the intention. And like what you said, using the search function, finding people who have commonalities, that all takes you doing a certain set of actions on platform. And they'll always try to sell you the premium or the navigator or the whatever else to make your life easier to do those things. But you can very easily just go in there with the proper workflow and get the things that you're talking about accomplished in one sitting, going and find the organization, find the people. Like I know I've done it before. The part that I get stuck on is when you go to actually contact that person or that organization, because LinkedIn also, we know, is a very forward outbound selling kind of space where there's people in your inbox selling something all the time. So how do you not sound like a chump or sound like a jerk coming into people's LinkedIn inbox?
I am so happy that you brought this up because it's the absolute truth. This is what happens. So, and recruiters tell me all the time, Scott, the thing that I hate is when an applicant reaches out to me and says, I've applied for this job. Can you hook me up? No, I'm not going to hook you up. And that's basically what they get for any given number of positions from any given number of people. So what I do strategically is and everything's going to take a little bit more time and effort, but that's okay. It's going to pay off in the long run. I will go look at that individual's profile. I'll go from top to bottom, and I'm looking for a hook. All right. I'm looking for something that I have in common with them. Maybe I'm just going to throw it out there. Maybe it's they went to school at Northwestern. Well, my son went to school at Northwestern. Maybe in their about section, they like to garden. Well, I like to garden. Or maybe they're a veteran. Well, I'm also a veteran. So I'm looking for something that will build a relationship, but yet at the same time, show them I've done my due diligence in getting to know them a little bit better. Now, If I go through their profile and they don't have anything in there, then I'm going to go look at the company that they work for. And I'm going to try to find a good nugget about that organization that aligns maybe with my passions and my purpose and why I feel I'm a good fit for that organization above and beyond my qualifications for the job. So I'm going to say something along the lines of, I was doing my research on your organization before I applied for this position, and I know that you're a huge advocate of X, right? Or whatever it might be. And then that's going to show them that, oh, this person's actually really interested because they're really doing their research before they even applied for the job. So we're looking for that, again, something that's going to separate us from the hundreds of other people that are doing the exact same thing, which can be kind of a lazy approach.
Yeah, I get everything from I can fix your YouTube to I can get you 10 million sales leads in a day, right? Like it's kind of funny the things that people offer on LinkedIn that are just straight up a sale in the DMs, the first message. There isn't a relationship like you mentioned. There is no commonality, none of that. So it's always fascinating to me when I'm on that platform and I'm like, but I know people do a lot of DM based contacts that work, right? Like, so
Sure.
I know within my experience, I've just put notes when I connect with people, like we met here, or we have this thing that's in common or whatever. And most people will connect with you off of the, whatever reason that they decide to. But I haven't really been doing the part that you're talking about, which is getting the informational interviews and using it as a space to cultivate connections that then could lead to whatever you want for your next step. So I think that's a really great tip for folks. I want to go back to you in your story and like, how did you decide that you were going to help people? Because besides being in the military, you've done a lot of different types of helping for people, and you've even made yourself a better helper by getting certifications, like all these different things. So when did this start? Like, how did you decide this is going to be your path?
I'm very excited that you asked me this question also. It's all aligning. It goes back to my adolescence. I was, in my early years of high school. My dad was in the Air Force, and we went to, oh my gosh, we moved 5 times in 4 years. And I went to 4 different high schools in 4 years. So I think my way of fitting in was by appeasing and helping people. And, that idea that I want to support and help others so that way they like me, right? So then I fast forward to getting out of the Navy. I joined the Navy instead of the Air Force. So I did the Navy, and I fell into a role while going to college because my degree was going to be psychology. And I fell into a role of supporting the veteran community with their job search efforts at the very lowest level, just an administrative assistant. And then I just kind of, as people left and I stuck around, I grew my way all the way to being the director. I realized as I needed to solidify my experience, I needed those certifications as well. So I started to pursue them. The problem probably where I was at, or where I am at, is I was almost too much of what I have labeled mission we, where instead of focusing on mission me and what's good for Scott and how Scott's going to advance in his career moving forward, I've always put myself on the back burner because I'm so worried about helping other people. And with what's going on in the current state of our country and my uncertainty about federal employment, and if this is something I can even stay with anymore, either by my own decision or the decision of somebody else, I realized I got to start focusing on myself. So how did I start focusing on myself? Well, I started reaching out to one individual who then introduces me to another individual. And that's how we met each other, right? Is I was referred, from a friend to you. And I'm just kind of, and then this is a great tip. And I haven't done it to you yet, but I will. Whenever you do an informational interview, as it wraps up, ask, who do you believe are 3 more people I should speak to? in your network? And are you willing to introduce me to those 3 individuals? Because the warm handoff is going to be the best approach. But going back to your original question, is I've always been one who wants to support other people. And that's why I've stuck with what I've done for so long. It's giving individuals that sort of aha moment, like, oh, I didn't think about that. That's a great idea. That sort of thing is what propels me to success. And I look forward to doing it for the rest of my life. I'm so fortunate that I'm in a place to where I would literally do my job for free. Don't tell my leadership that, but I love what I do so much that I would do it for free. And I want everybody to find a job to where they would do it for free. And if I can do that, then I've made the world a better place.
I think that's such a good wisdom. That's basically this job for me. I do so much giving in this job. It's like free discounted things because I love working with nonprofits, and they often don't have budgets for executive coaching, right? So it's that, how do you find a happy balance between, you enjoy the work, you do the work, and also know that it's going to bring you more clients, more introductions. I love the question you said that everybody should be asking. How can I get to more people in your network is essentially the question. I think that's a really good closing for people. And also, who can I introduce you to from my network, right? And so kind of being able to give and take in that space of, we're all searching for a connection to something. And I think for me, I find myself being a connector of people, places, and things. So there's a lot of, it may not be a person, but it may be a resource that I can connect you to, or an article that I've read that you might be interested in. And I really take a lot of time to try to make those connections for people, because they think that that's how you deepen your relationship with the people in your network. And then, after maybe 4 or 5 times that I've given people something, then I might come and ask for a favor. I'm like a sneaky person. I don't come and ask for something off of, and I just met you. But when I ask, I often get people jumping and willing to do whatever I ask for, because I've given so many times before I even come to you and say, hey, there's something you could do for me. So I'm getting to that point right now where I'm going back to my network and I'm asking specific people, hey, I need these intros, and I'd like you to personally make them, like you're saying. So I love this tip. And do you want to say anything more about how people can deepen their relationships with their network? Feel free.
Sure. And this is something that I talk to our military members about quite often is, yes, they've had mentors in uniform as they've gone through service to reach the rank that they're at. But oftentimes they have the mentality that they can just do it themselves. They're going to suck it up. They'll be able to get to where they need to go, and they don't need the help and the support of other individuals. So the way I kind of twist that for them to see it in a different manner is the fact that us as human beings, we love and naturally want to help and support other people. So by me not coming to you and asking for help, I am actually robbing you of a feel-good moment. And I want to give you that because you just told me a minute ago that you love helping other people. So if I don't ask you for help, I've actually robbed you of a moment for yourself to feel good. So don't be afraid to reach out to people. Networking relationships is not a one-way street. It may seem like it right now because you're the one who's in need of something, but who knows, 2 years down the road, you might be in a great new job, and the person that helped you get into that job might need your support right now, and you're able to reciprocate. So it's a two-way street that we're looking at. So we cannot be afraid to ask for help.
I think that's really good, giving people permission to, request assistance and feel like, you're going to get yes versus no's, or even if people would just say, I don't know, I don't actually have that information, or I don't know anything about it, or I don't have anyone for you. Like that's the worst thing that could happen. So it's really not like there's, something you need to be afraid of. So just really quickly, the other thing you mentioned was that, you tend to be someone who helps others a lot. And that's 100% of my guests are people who help others. So I always want to ask them this question then, how do you maintain your own well-being so you can continue to show up and serve other people? And what are your practices that have worked for you in that space so that you can continue to be a helper?
That I need to practice what I preach, right? That's what I've learned since January is I have to start practicing what I preach. And I think the way that I support myself is by doing things like this. I love creativity. So whether I'm jumping on Canva or I'm creating written content to post on LinkedIn, I see that almost as journaling. So it's self-reflective. As I'm writing something for other people, I'm kind of internalizing it myself as well, which is helping me grow. I take care of myself, by going outside and again, working in the garden to the point where I'm trying to blend that entrepreneurship approach, the analogy of cultivating a career, like cultivating a garden is what I'm looking at if I decide to be an entrepreneur. So I like gardening. Of course, as most people would say, I like being with my family and my friends. And I also like my alone time. I think a lot of my care for myself is just being alone, on my porch, with nothing going and just kind of, again, doing a little bit of self-reflection and seeing where I'm at and where I need to go. And another thing that I often do, I'm not saying I don't think it's selfish, but if somebody writes me a recommendation on LinkedIn, or if somebody drops a note that says, or sends me a thank you card, sometimes I go back through them and I look at the wonderful comments people have made about the services I provided them. And that also lifts me up and keeps me going in the right direction.
That's such a good recommendation for people to do recommendations because I think we all kind of sleep on that. Like it's not like a Google review where you go and buy something from the shop and then you say, "Oh, I enjoyed my experience with the shopkeeper." It's a little bit more personal because you're really talking about like the recommendations on LinkedIn are usually
Yes.
very like good observations about someone's work or an experience that they had that was really positive. People don't tend to just like give recommendations out on LinkedIn.
No, yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes you have to actually ask for it. Yeah, like that's another way people can support you.
Yeah. So the way that I look at recommendations on LinkedIn and is the person, like if you look at my most recent recommendation, that individual I probably would not reach out to be a reference for a job. He's never worked with me. He's just been to some of my classes. I've supported him. But the wonderful things that he said, if a company looked at that, they'd be like, wow, Scott's a pretty dynamic person. And then if they go look at, maybe the 50 others that I have, they'd be like, whoa, there's a trend here. Scott's doing all this good stuff from people that it's not necessarily solicited from. I don't have a problem with saying, hey, I'm really trying to grow my LinkedIn presence. Do you mind providing me a recommendation as we worked on project, A? Or, do you mind talking about when we served together during this role? Those types of things. So there's nothing wrong with asking for a recommendation. But bottom line is it 100% brings value to who you are as a professional, a person, and your overall character. But let's take it even one step further. And I challenge people to do this. And I try to every time for myself. Whenever I get a recommendation, I try to give a recommendation. So giving recommendation is going to give that individual who receives it that feel good moment to open up their profile and see that sitting there. And then they read it and they're like, wow, that was really nice that they did that for me. It's also going to help them grow professionally as they may be looking for new employment either now or later. And the other thing that it does, which could be a little bit selfish, but your profile is now on their profile. So if a recruiter or somebody was to scroll all the way down and look at recommendations because they're interested in an individual, and they see Scott Raether wrote this great thing about that individual, it might drive them to my profile, which could lead to some sort of an opportunity.
That's so fascinating because I've not even done recommendations for my clients yet, but I'm going to go back and do all these things. You've given so many good tips about how we can navigate the career changes, how we can navigate LinkedIn for all of the support and our network. So thank you for being here. I'm going to ask you one last question. So obviously you hang out on LinkedIn a lot, but if you could give a plug for yourself so people know where to find you, and if they resonated with what you're talking about, they can potentially work with you.
Sure. At this moment, I would just say connect with me on LinkedIn. So, my name's down there. I am one of the only Scott Raethers. I'm the easiest Scott Raether to find on LinkedIn. So Raether. Connect with me, follow me there, because I'm at a weird limbo place being a federal employee. I don't market any type of a side hustle because I don't want to get in trouble with some sort of a conflict of interest. But things are changing rapidly, and I'm here to support as many different people as I can. So I would probably say reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn and follow my growth, and we'll connect in other ways as we need to.
I love that. Yes, yes. And it's always hard navigating the outside activities of federal employment. I know that for certain. So I wish you so much luck in, not only your journey, but also the journey of all the people that you inspire, because you have such a wonderful group of people that you help every day. And for anyone who is listening, make sure that you check out Scott's LinkedIn profile. We'll have the link to it in the show notes down below, so you can check those out. And also, if you need to contact him, he's really responsive in his DMs. I can tell. I can attest to. He does get back to you. So he's a good soul.
Thank you. There are moments I could probably do better, but for the most part, I do try to respond as fast as I can.
Yeah, he's a good soul. He's much better than I am with DMs. So reach out to Scott. But yeah, we'll have one more episode in this season. It'll drop in 2 weeks, and then we'll be on hiatus for just a little bit, and we'll be coming back later in 2025 with season 4, which we don't have a theme for yet. So if you have any suggestions, you can get into my DMs on LinkedIn or Instagram, and I'll be happy to chat with any of our listeners. And if you come back for the season ending episode, you get a surprise what we're going to be talking about. So excited to be here with you, Scott, and have you in the space. Thank you for the interview and for joining us. I will count on your recommendation being on my LinkedIn profile sometime soon, and looking forward to seeing you around the LinkedIn space.
Love it. Thank you so much for having me. I love sharing information and growing relationships. I've made a new friend over the past, couple weeks in yourself, and I look forward to learning from you just as much as potentially you learn from me.
Yes, awesome. Well, we even can do more live content together on the platform too. So, all right, listeners, come back for the final episode of season 3, where we've been talking about redefining success. This episode has been all about redefining success for yourself. Hope you got a lot of good tips, and we'll see you back here for our final episode. Take care.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed the conversation, and we look forward to having you come back. If you're curious about something we shared, make sure you check in the show notes below. And do you want the secret to make your nonprofit or business more sustainable and more profitable? Hop into my Learn, Grow, Thrive University, where I give you exclusive access to resources, mini courses, and templates for free. All you need to do is sign up at wendyvelos.com/university. See you next episode.